In May 2024, we travelled to the island of Madeira, an autonomous region of Portugal situated in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of West Africa. The island of volcanic derivation is subtropical and offers spectacular hiking. We decided to backpack across the island from east to west, taking in two of its highest peaks, Pico do Arriero and Pico Ruivo. Our trek covered over 110 kilometers and more than 5,000 meters of ascent. The trek took us a week and most days averaged around 15 kilometers. There are a multitude of routes one can take across the island, many following the levadas, or irrigation systems for which Madeira is famous, and you can create your own route to suit your needs. Camping is not allowed without a free permit from the Madeiran authorities, which you must arrange prior to travel. We were blessed with fabulous weather, and as it was spring, the flowers were absolutely magnificent. This was a truly thrilling challenge, the hardest unsupported trek we have done anywhere in the world, and one that will remain indelibly printed in our memories.
We invite you to join us through the high points and the low points as we backpack east to west across the volcanic spine of this enchanting island from Casa do Serginho to Porto Moniz.
We caught the local bus from Funchal, then took the PR8 across the Vereda da Ponta de Sarro Lourenço Peninsula to the campsite near the Casa do Serginho, where we set up camp above the beach. The undulating route of just under 4 kilometers along the peninsula, colloquially known as the Dragon's Tail, is very popular as it offers stupendous views of the jagged coastline and volcanic rock formations. We fell asleep to a chorus of crickets, but our sleep was disturbed by the occasional otherworldly cries of Cory's shearwater. We broke camp not long after dawn, then headed back to the start of the PR8 to catch a local bus to the village of Machico. This avoided some dangerous and boring road walking. Today we covered around 17 kilometers, firstly through lush farmland, irrigated by waters brought from the mountains via a levada. The route then wove its way high above vertiginous cliffs before descending sharply towards Santa Cruz. The final brutally steep climb up into the mountains was particularly challenging in the heat and humidity.
We were really glad to make camp. The weight of our packs in the tropical climate had made the going tough at times. We hoped as we climbed higher into the mountains that the excessive heat would subside a little.
We broke camp not long after dawn. The cloud cover that had made life so unbearably humid had lifted, and in the clear skies of early morning, we soon caught sight of the gnarly mountain range we would be traversing in the coming days. It looked challenging to say the least.
As we were short of water, we stopped to draw some from a lavada. These ancient irrigation channels bring water from the mountains to lower altitudes, but we did not risk drinking the water without first filtering it and UV treating it with our trusty SteriPen for use in our bladders. We boiled it to rehydrate our dried food. On all our treks worldwide, we have relied on Expedition Foods, a British brand which we consider to be head and shoulders above their competitors. The macaroni and cheese is my absolute favourite.
We were planning to traverse the picturesque PR10 all the way to Ribeirão Frio. Imagine our shock when we discovered that the route was closed halfway along due to a landslip. On a multi-day trek, even the best laid plans can go amiss. The wisdom of always carrying a topographical map, a GPS and charged mobile phone now came into play as we hastily revised our travel plans. We had to take an alternative steep track up into the mountains that led towards the ER 202. So we logged on to the Madeiran government website to book a pitch at the campsite of Terreiros, rather than the one we had arranged at Ribeirão Frio.
The road up to the plateau where the campsite was located was brutally steep, and as we emerged from the tree cover, the sun beat down relentlessly. On arrival at the campsite in the late afternoon, after covering around 15 kilometres, we found we were the only occupants and selected a shaded level spot to set up camp.
One look at the clear morning sky, and we knew we were in for a long, hard day along the PR1 from Pico do Arieiro to the Casa del Abrigo, the climber's hut below Pico Ruivo, where we had booked beds for that night. En route, we enjoyed an enormous freshly cooked breakfast at the Abrigo do Poiso restaurant. The slog up to Pico do Arieiro along roads, dusty trails, and the final flight of steep steps was tough in the relentlessly hot sunshine. We were rewarded with deliciously cool stouts in the restaurant next to the distinctive radar dome.
The views from the summit were simply spectacular. The coast on either side of the island was visible, and the whole of the chaotic volcanic mass towards Pico Ruivo was weathered into soaring slabs and spires. It seemed almost impossible that there was a route through the contorted masses of rock.
The PR1 is very popular, and the trail was incredibly busy with day trippers who swarmed along it like hundreds of ants. The trail, just over 5 kilometers long, undulates continually across the spine of the island, through a number of tunnels and up and down over a series of steep steps, which greatly adds to the challenge.
Sections of it were reminiscent of the Inca Trail in the Andes and the Carres Gorge Trail in eastern Asturias, Spain. The spring flora was at its height, and we were fortunate to spot several red-legged partridges. It was entrancing to watch the cloud mystically curling round the rocky spires, while vistas of green valleys far below flashed in and out of view.
We were a few kilometers from the hut when we met a group of trekkers from Czechia whom we had met at the first campsite. They were the bearers of bad news. They had received a phone call to tell them that the hut was closed, as the water supply had failed and we could not stay. Imagine our disappointment. No much needed shower. As we were already committed to the route, we decided to push on and camp near the hut instead, hoping that we would be able to find some water to sterilize. If not, we would be forced to abort the trek the following morning. This depressed our spirits, and the end of the trail felt brutally hard. The metal staircases were particularly onerous. On arrival at the hut, we found it closed, but fortunately managed to secure some water from a nearby cistern. Feeling much more optimistic, we set up on the patio outside for the night.
Fortunately, at dusk, the hut warden arrived and allowed us inside. Although we could not take a shower, it felt good to lay on a bed for the night after covering 17 kilometres and 1,100 metres of ascent in high temperatures.
We rose before dawn and were treated to a magnificent sunrise from the summit of Pico Ruivo, which at 1,861 meters is Madeira's highest mountain. We could see the route we took yesterday, and the wind farm on the Pol de Serra plateau. We would be camping near there the following night. After a couple hours rest and some breakfast, we left the hut bound for Encumada along the PR 1.3.
The scenery was truly breathtaking and the spring flora magnificent, but the route felt a lot longer than 11 kilometres. In fact, our GPS logged it as nearer 14. It undulated up and down relentlessly over steep steps across a series of ridges. We relied heavily on our pacer poles, the British-made walking sticks we have been using for over 15 years to negotiate this trying terrain.
We were glad when the cloud descended early in the afternoon and lowered the air temperature. The Madeiran honey cake, made of local cane sugar, was a delicious and energizing treat. The clouds parted and we could see the Ilhéus d'Arganela and Porto Moniz, where we would end our trek in 2 days' time.
The final knee-jerking climb down over flights of uneven steps to the Encomiada saddle was most unwelcome. Today we had descended 1,500 metres and were really glad to arrive at the Valley View Hotel at Encomiada, where cool stouts, a hot shower, a delicious buffet meal and a comfortable bed awaited us.
Today's 14-kilometre route promised to be easier, so after a leisurely breakfast we set off mid-morning along the PR17, bound for a campsite on the Pol de Serra plateau.
The landscape had changed markedly, and instead of mountain flora, we were now in the forest, surrounded by lush tropical vegetation and stunning waterfalls. The Levada we followed was the most scenic and exciting so far, and involved traversing 2 very long tunnels through the mountains which required head torches. It was quite a squeeze walking along the narrow path alongside the water channel carrying large packs, and very awkward at times when meeting people coming in the opposite direction. After following the Levada along relatively flat terrain, we had to descend sharply for around 80 metres, which was highly annoying, only to have to ascend the final 630 metres to the plateau. The last few hundred metres were a real hard slog along a rough, dusty forest track.
Level pitches at the campsite, situated on the edge of the forest, are at a premium, but as we arrived in good time, we were able to find a pleasant spot amid the trees for our Terra Nova Voyager tent. We were woken by a riotous dawn chorus and were treated to the most spectacular sunrise imaginable. The sky was on fire as the pyrotechnics of dawn lit up the eastern horizon. Day 6. Day 6 on the trail. Today's route took us 13 kilometres to Fanal, our final campsite. We crossed the heather-covered Pol da Serra, the only plateau on the island. From here we followed the PR13 through head-high heather for most of the way. The heat and humidity were tremendous. The campsite at Fanal is situated amid the remnants of a Laurisilva cloud forest, grazed by creme caramel-coloured cows. Several million years ago, this remarkable ecosystem once covered 90% of southern Europe and northwest Africa. The Fanal area is the best surviving example of this once widespread cloud forest, now only found in Macaronesia. It contains trees, gnarled and bent with age, which are believed to be up to 600 years old. It has been listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1999. After another glorious sunrise, we took down our tent for the last time and headed for the PR14, and then the PR-15, which would take us down to the coast, entailing a brutal descent of around 1,200 meters.
On leaving the plateau, we encountered several sections of knee-crunching wooden steps. As we followed a meandering lavada, we once again passed through lush subtropical forest resembling scenes from Jurassic Park. After several hours, the forest began to thin and we encountered the telltale signs of civilization in the form of terraced vegetable plots serving the pretty village of Ribeira da Janela. The village roads were set at wickedly steep 45-degree angles, and traversing them was absolutely punishing on the feet and knees.
It was a relief to stop a while at the cafe above the beach to quench our considerable thirst with cool stouts, before the final section along the old coast road to Porto Moniz. The gnarly Ilhaios da Ribeira da Janela more resembled a scene from Iceland than Madeira. It was a fabulous feeling to finally arrive at our hotel after our week-long trek across the island through a variety of landscapes, ranging from semi-desert to subtropical.
Cheers.
Cheers, cheers.
Porto Moniz had a real treat in store for us, the beautiful natural swimming pools right opposite our hotel. This was a fabulous way to unwind and ease our aching muscles, a very fitting end to what was a most magnificent trek.